you got more to do. It's not over. Your work ain't over. The day ain't done yet. And there's more to be learned. And some of those lessons are painful. And they're going to be. But that's where that wealth of knowledge comes. If you don't have extreme highs and you don't have extreme lows, you haven't lived yet. And these other people, they don't even understand living. And they can't. And that's because that's all they were made for. That's all they were capable of. We're capable of more. You guys, all you guys are capable of more. And that's the beauty of it. The military let you go, but they prepared you to come in, but they don't know how to prepare you to go back out. And that's where it falls apart for you guys. And the truth is that all of it's part of the lessons that you got to learn in life. You know, it's harder. It takes more strength to show compassion than it does to show anger. Mm-hmm. It takes more strength and power to stand up for people than to turn a blind eye and walk away. You know, and that's what we're doing today. We're standing up for people. We're taking the hard walk. You guys are doing that hard mental thinking. You know, everybody that's going to watch this is going to say, wow, I had to walk a hard mile just watching that show, just watching them talk about this. I had to do some more exploring inside myself. But the truth is that it's what we need to do to get to the next stage. And that's what's going to prepare you to be with the rest of us. And they're not ready for you guys because you're superior to them. It's the truth. You know what I mean? Any human being that pushed a body, as far as you men pushed a body, anybody that pushed a mind, as far as you guys pushed a mind, that is an edge that cannot be taught in college, cannot be taught, to you by your mom and dad. You can't learn that stuff there. You got to learn it on the walk. You know what I mean?
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Choke Point. We've got a guest who's really important to me. I've known Robin Hackett for a long time. She's a close personal friend of mine. She also is the leading authority on medical marijuana and cannabis research in the world. She's read more studies, and she's actually conducted the largest cannabis study than anybody else on the planet. And her knowledge is actually, it blows me away all the time. And I've linked up with her in between deployments from time to time, and just the knowledge and wisdom she has and how she applies it to medical marijuana. Her philosophy has helped me out, and I couldn't take advantage of medicinal marijuana while I was in the Army, but she's helped a lot of vets in the meantime and other terminally ill people, and she's led the fight to get cannabis legalized in Colorado and made sure that people could get it for medicine, and it's changed people's lives. So, Robin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you can do with cannabis, and what kind of diseases you can treat, and what kind of effects you've been having?
Okay, well, I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to everyone and to share some of what I've been doing. So I appreciate that, Paul. And so I started out my career at 15 years old. I started working structural steel. And so I was the first woman in 1979 to become a journeyman iron worker. And so when I was 26 years old, I fell 35 feet. And I lived in pain my whole life. And so as I moved through my career, I was very successful, but my pain levels got higher and higher. And as I aged, I couldn't take the pain as much. And one of the things I realized is that when I was working structural steel, the adrenaline kept my pain levels down. I could take more pain. I could handle it. And when I didn't work structural steel anymore, I didn't have the adrenaline to help me. And so my pain levels seemed like they tripled as soon as I had stopped working. So then I was focused on trying to deal with that. And a friend talked me into eating a marijuana cookie. And I thought, oh, that's a crock. People do that to get high legal. You know what I mean? That ain't going to help you. Morphine doesn't help me. Percocet doesn't help me. There's no way marijuana is going to help me. And so finally, I eat the marijuana cookie, and 2 hours later, I had pain relief I had not felt in 15 years. And I thought, holy cow, we're onto something.
You've tried everything for your pain, right? I mean, you've tried opioids, you've tried nerve blockers, you've tried all kinds of stuff, if I remember.
Exactly. Gabapentin, you name it. And then they kept me on 800 milligrams of ibuprofen for anti-inflammatory until I went into liver failure. And I'm looking at my doctor going, you did this, dude. You You let my liver go into failure? You were in charge. I did everything you said to the T, and now I got liver failure, and I'm going to live 20 years less. I can't change that now. Nothing's going to change that for me.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so passionate about what I do, because I look at people and I think, first of all, you don't have to suffer. Second of all, I'm going to make sure your liver makes it to the end too, And so when I realized what cannabis could do for me, I started doing cannabis research. I wanted to know, why did this work when everything my doctor gave me did not work? So to be honest, I thought the DEA was going to come to my house if I Googled it, Googled marijuana. So I'm like at the library Googling marijuana and stuff, because I'm thinking, oh yeah, they're going to beat down the door. That's a trigger word, and they're going to come find me. And so here I am trying to look stuff up, and I'm printing out tons of stuff so I can take it home and read it. But so I started reading through it, and I called my sister one day and I said, yeah, you want to go in the marijuana business with me? It finally got legal here in Colorado. And she said, hell no, I don't even want my name on it. What's wrong with you? And I said, you know what? We could help people. We could show them how to live again. I was a shut-in. I had not lived in years. And I said, we can help folks. And really, honestly, we thought all we would be able to do is help people with pain. We were very naive about how to treat people and stuff. And she said, okay, I'll do it. So we opened up our first shop, and oh, trust me, that is like, a stack of paper this high, 10 years background checks and bank statements and tax returns. It's quite complicated. So we finally make it, we get it open. And I expected half the people to honestly be exploiting cannabis. I expected them to, say, oh, yeah, my back's bad, so they could get marijuana. But that's not what we saw. What we saw was the worst suffering you could possibly imagine. These people had suffered so much physically that they had become mentally ill as well. So everyone who sat in front of me, it was noticeable that they were as mentally ill as they were physically ill. And so after 2 weeks, I looked at my sister and I said, man, I don't know if I can help these people. I said, there's two things wrong. I said, one, they trust us because the word medical's in the name. And I said, we didn't even earn that trust yet. And I said, the second thing is they think we know what we're doing and we don't. And I said, but you know what? I'm not going to let these human beings down. They have suffered enough. They have had enough. And I don't care if I take a day off. I don't care if I sleep. If cannabis treats these human beings, I will find that answer. And I started the next day documenting how every human responded to everything I gave them. I started sending stuff to a laboratory and getting it tested long before anybody was tested marijuana. Because I thought if I could figure out how I helped them and I knew what was in it, I could duplicate it over and over again. So we started documenting them. I was reading research papers, and the funny part about that was I pulled the first one up, and it took me 2 weeks to understand the first paragraph. I had to look up 3/4 of the words. I was like, oh God, this could take a while. But after time, I started breezing through them. And so I started reading all this research. And what I realized is that cannabis was capable of many things in the body. There was 20,000 research papers, medical research papers on cannabis. We're like, oh, there's no research. No, not really. And so, I started reading through them. But what I realized is cannabis would help with mental health issues, would help with pain, would help with all these different diseases, but we didn't know what to give them. Do we give them THC? Do we give them CBD? Should they eat it? Should they smoke it? Should they rub it on their body? We didn't know what to do. And so we started the documentation, and I would look at people and I would grab their hands. They would come with these diseases, and I'm like, holy cow, how do you spell that? And I'd write it down, and I'm like, I don't know. When I'd reach out, I would grab their hands and I would look right into their eyes and I would say, I don't know if cannabis treats you, but if you're brave enough to keep coming in that door every week, I promise I will never give up and I will always be there with you. And so those brave souls, they found an energy. They found this drop of hope, and they walked out with it, and they came back with that drop of hope time after time. And we found those answers, and it didn't take us long. After a year and a half, we found medicating protocols for 68 disorders, and without a head high. So if you don't have to be high, if you need the relief and the high don't fit you, that's okay too. Cannabis is capable of that. And so as we started working through our through disorders, what we realized was that people that have bone injuries and have traumatic events that create these injuries, that a bone heals 30% faster on cannabis than off of cannabis. Well, if you're trying to regrow a bone back and you're in one of those halos and they're breaking it and separating it every so many days, and that happens 30% faster, you're 6 months less in the hospital. You know what I mean? So we started stumbling on these miraculous events in cannabis. And so we started teaching people how to use cannabis right. Everyone has their own sweet spot, their own combination. Everybody does. And so what I do is I kind of just teach folks how to find it. I guide them, I stay with them for 30 to 60 days, and I help them get there. And so the reason that cannabis works for 68 diseases, that don't make no sense. I mean, I show up and I lecture to doctors, I lecture to seniors, I lecture to people, and I educate them. And first thing I show them is the long list of things I can treat, and they all look at it and I say, wow, when we look down this list, we've all thought of 10 people that could use help with cannabis. And I said, and the second thing we think is this lady's a snake oil salesman. And that's not possible. That don't fit anything we've ever been taught. You don't take seizure medicine if you have a bad back. But in cannabis, you do, And so that just didn't fit. And the medical world really didn't think it fit when I would talk to them, it was like, oh, you non-medical, you. And I was like, oh, stop. And so anyway, as we went on, and as I studied the body, what happens in the human body, the reason cannabis is so powerful, and we've all been taught it's the devil, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. And we almost even people feel guilty when they first start using it. I mean, I've had customers where they actually got guilty because they kind of enjoyed getting a little buzz, and I was like, yeah, let it go, it's okay. And so what we realized is that inside of each human being, you have billions and billions of cannabinoid receptors. Our immune system is a cannabinoid entity. So there is a specific receptor that controls the brain and the nervous system, and that is called the CB1 receptor. It's a cannabinoid 1, and it controls the neurons in your brain as well as your entire nervous system. So people with traumatic brain injuries, people that have spinal injuries, have nerve pain, even nerve disorders, we look to this receptor as the healing component. Now, on the outside of every single cell in your body, and think of how many cells compile you, and the outside of each one sets the cannabinoid 2 receptor. This is your immune system. It was Dr. Raphael Mechoulam that discovered that in 1974. And nobody bothered to even look at it, I mean, here we are in 2016. And so there is another receptor in your body that is in your bone marrow. It's in your blood, it's in your kidneys, your liver, your intestines, it's in the ovaries, it's in our tissue, it's in our skin. Our skin has receptors. So this is why one plant will treat that many disorders. So the cannabis plant produces 111 cannabinoids. And out of those 111 cannabinoids, THC is just one. And out of the 111, only THC and THCV create a psychoactive effect. The rest of them heal the body. And so when we started to understand that some of this is to treat the mind and some of it is to treat the body. But if the body suffers, the mind suffers. And so with that, we realized that this plant do to treat the mind and the body simultaneously. Your body cannot get well if your mind is sick. Your mind cannot get well if your body is sick. So we figured all this out and we started meeting with people. I have now documented 4,000 people over a 6-year period. And we documented what full plant extraction was. So if you take the plant and you isolate it into independent components, it doesn't work as well. The full plant together is the mechanism that creates this overall healing. The receptors in the body create homeostasis. a balancing of the system. Now, sometimes traumatic events, outside events, create an imbalance in our cannabinoid receptors, and sometimes it's caused by genetics, birth defects, diseases. So different things create that, but all it takes is a little bit of cannabinoids, the right combination of them, and the body will do what it has to do to fix itself. So it was amazing. And even 2 years later, we were still documenting them getting better, their health increasing. The decline of a human being is usually slow, to the point where one day the suffering person goes, "What day did I get this bad? What day did I fall apart?" Because it came on so gradual. And cannabis is not a quick fix. It's not an instant solution. It comes on slow. But once you find it, it is a sustainable solution. It's sustainable to your intestines and your organs. It's sustainable for a lifetime. People have used cannabis for 50 years. And they're healthy as can be. And so the stoners and, of course, the hippies, they gave us the longest test ever, And my dad, he smoked marijuana since I was 3 years old. So for 50-some years, he used cannabis. And he was the spitting image of health. Never took a drug. Never took anything more than aspirin every once in a while for a headache. So with all of that, we start thinking about, how do we put this together? How do we build these programs for people? How do we make it specific for you? Now, what treats our mental health is the smell of cannabis, the terpenes. So some cannabis is going to smell like lemons and zesty smelling. Those you can count on being uplifting. So as you're experimenting with cannabis, pay attention to the smell. Your nose will talk to you. And I thought that was ridiculous, to be honest. I was like, who in the world picks their medicine by smelling it? I thought it was dumb. And I was so convinced that scientifically I would know the right answer, because I read all this research. I've read 8,000 research papers. This is the one you should take. And their nose said that one. And I was so convinced I was right, I would give them mine for free, because I was just that convinced I was right. But you know what? 9 times out of 10, I was completely wrong. And that their nose did know the one that was right for them. Marijuana that smells like a musky, wet basement. Now, there's a difference between skunky smell. That's a combination of them, but it's going to be a little more calming. But if it smells like a wet basement, it's going to be high in myrcene. It's going to help you calm down. It's going to help you sleep. So those components in the plant, there's flavonoids that play a role. There's parts in the plant that the scientific world cannot even understand yet. But it's all positive and it's all productive. I treat children from the youngest child I have ever treated was 2 weeks old. She was born, and when she came out of the womb, she had a seizure. And the little girl was having these seizures just constantly. They gave her as much medication as they could without killing her, and could not stop her seizures. It took me 5 days, and I stopped her seizures with cannabis. So you look at this infant child, and it was terrifying for me to treat an infant child, And I thought, oh, God, please. I went home that night and I prayed, and I said, Lord, just make me smart enough. Make me brilliant enough to save this child, to do no wrong for her. And, the wisdom was there, and she is living a productive life now. And so we also treat seniors. Seniors benefit more from cannabis than anyone else benefits from it.
Why is
When
that?
aging brings on, cannabis takes away joint pain. My back, my neck, my hands are sore. Cannabis takes all of that away safely. If you were to take ibuprofen, 800 milligrams, you will go into liver failure.
Standard procedure.
Yeah, it's standard, right? And so the older you are, the faster that decline will come. People in their 20s and 30s can handle it. You get after 40, you're just putting a time clock on your lifespan, to be honest. And the beauty of Colorado, I do have to say, and one of the most surprising things that happened here, when the election was to vote for legalizing cannabis, we were terrified. We were like, oh, the partiers are going to ruin everything. This medicine's going to save people. And we were afraid the feds would come in and arrest us all once it was recreational. So we were scared of recreational, even though we were in the marijuana industry and it was going to be profitable. But we were afraid because we saw the cure in this plant. And so when the election happened, we didn't think it was going to pass. And we were like, holy cow, it passed. And we were like, okay, well, let's get in gear for that as well. But what it brought wasn't negative at all. It made people tell their doctors here in Colorado the truth about their cannabis use. And the physicians started cluing in that I'm not making this person better. Cannabis is making them better. And then the medical world started coming towards us in cannabis, started asking questions. So something like, and a lot of people in America will think, oh, those stoners in Colorado, when really it started this trend even in the medical world of looking at this plant different, looking at these humans different. So something we thought was going to be negative ended up being the most valuable thing, because now the physicians here in Colorado endorse it. And to be honest, if you're over 65 and you have multiple disorders, they're going to tell you to go to cannabis. Doctors here, the mainstream doctors, are telling the seniors to use cannabis. And,
Really?
Yeah, and it's happening here for real. And the truth is that most seniors that come to me are on 15 to 20 prescription drugs when they come. They got drugs that counter drugs, and this counters that, and this is for this. And you look at their pill supply, and they have to have them divided up or they lose their minds. And it usually takes us about 60 days, and we've got them down to 5 prescription drugs. I'm not saying prescription drugs are bad. What I'm saying is too many of them are bad. Taking them for too long is bad. And for me,
where you're trying to balance one with the other. I mean, we go through this with the VA, and that's why your story is so compelling to us, because I go into the VA and I'm like, hey, I'm not sleeping well, and that means I can't get to the gym. I have no energy during the day. I don't get all my stuff done. That makes me feel like a slob. Then I wake up the next day in the hole because yesterday was bad. And they're like, well, here's some Xanax, here's an antidepressant, here's some Ambien for sleep, and here's some pain pills, and then here's some ibuprofen that's going to crush your liver. And it's like those 5 things when all I really need is to get to sleep, you know? And then I start having problems, and it's 3 more prescriptions. I think the last time I've stopped taking most of the medication the VA gives me because it's killing me. But I can't get away from some of the pain medication I have to take. But they would have me on, I think 13 prescriptions or 14 prescriptions is what they had me on after my first 2 visits at the VA. And I don't need any of them at all. But they're just going to use me like a chemistry set.
Right. You need solutions, not prescription drugs. And I'm not saying cannabis is right for everyone. But I am saying if all else has failed, it is a place to come to look for a solution. So if you've tried it all and you're not winning, we only get to live one time. We get one chance at this life. And we could waste it because we didn't look for the solution. We just took the pill. We've been trained, and especially for you guys, even more than my generation, is instant gratification. We have been taught that. You cry and take a pill. You don't like this, eat something, drink something, do something. We've been taught to have instant gratification. We were not taught to work for the solution. And so some of what we've got to do in society is retrain our thinking into that I need a solution, and how am I going to find it and still have a sustainable solution. When you talk about it being sustainable, most people that came to me in cannabis looking for help from cannabis, the drugs that were to save them turned on them eventually. You spend 15, 20 years on a drug, all of a sudden now that drug's turned on you, and it is part of the problem now. And you don't have an option because you can't get off that drug. Me on the opiates, my pain levels were so bad, but I hated what that drug was doing to me. I hated it. Gave me rage of anger out of nowhere, man. I would come uncorked. I wanted the death penalty for spilling milk. I'm like, turn me into give me opiates, and I turn into the Queen of Hearts. Off with their heads, And I couldn't control that rage of anger. And I always felt anxious. And, oh, God forbid that you would have to wait an extra half an hour before you take your pill, too. Like at 3 hours, you're supposed to take one, take them every 4. And 3 hours, I'm like, oh, come on, man. You can do 4. You can do 4.
Yeah.
I can do 4. Then I look at 5 minutes. It's only been 5 minutes. I can't do 4. I can't even do 10 more minutes. You know what I mean? And I just couldn't make myself even make it the 4 hours because I was already withdrawing. And I was already going through the pain and the mental freak out. And then I would hate to have to wait for it to ride back up. You know what I mean? So I started taking one every 2 hours as opposed to two every 4 hours because they would overlap each other. Because I couldn't take the mental stress of waiting that extra half an hour to take the damn pill. But I wouldn't let myself take it in 3 hours because I was scared of the addiction. It scared me. I knew I was addicted and it scared me. And if I up my dose, I have to admit I'm addicted. So I went up my dose and I would live in too much pain. And then I would get even crazier in my head because I wasn't controlling my pain levels. I was taking just enough to barely get by, but it wasn't right. I couldn't get it right. And I chased that. I tried it every way. You know how many times I went cold turkey, vomited, shook, sweated, paced for days, just trying everything to get off it because I hated that drug so bad. 4 days later, I had to go back on because I couldn't take the pain anymore. You know what I mean?
You're losing your quality of life from pain, and then they give you these drugs, and it's like, I try the drugs from the VA, and I'm so zonked out that I'm gonna end up on the wrong end of a tractor and get run over. So that's not better than laying in my bed and being in pain. I still can't go to work because I'm high on opiates. If I take all these drugs, and like you said, the addiction is a big, big deal. I mean, we're risk seekers. I mean, that's why we jump out of airplanes with machine guns. And like you said, we get that with adrenaline withdrawal that kept us going. Now our pain is worse, and we're seeking this risky behavior. And they give you these addictive drugs, or they give you something like Xanax that has this rebound, so you come off it with more anxiety than you went on to it with. And in the meantime, they won't even give you those drugs without screening you for marijuana at the VA in most states. So they screen you for marijuana, and you have to go to substance abuse courses to get opioids just so you can get through your day. And maybe your liver doesn't fail, or your kidneys don't shut down, or your stomach lining doesn't get ripped, or whatever the side effects may be. Or maybe you become addicted, and then your whole life is ruined. So it's like they're not really helping, but you have an answer. You know what I mean? At least it's something, and there's no harm in trying, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, have you run into any problems, side effects, or anything that?
There's no such thing as a cannabis overdose. You can't die from it. I mean, we give little kids that have brain tumors, we're giving them 200 milligrams a day of THC. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, they're playing and doing great because you can get a tolerance to any level. So whatever your level is, you will build a tolerance and you will function like you're breathing air and just living normal. You can function like that on THC. It takes time to build up that tolerance, but it doesn't matter whether you need 40 milligrams or you need 100 milligrams. You will get a tolerance to it in 14 days. So in 14 days, you will be able to function at your prime level on whatever level is perfect for you. And so, it doesn't work for lobbying. Like when we were lobbying about DUIs, guys would show up and go, I drive better on pot. I'm like, don't say that. The senator isn't buying it, And so, we're like, tackle him, get him off the pulpit. But anyway, the truth is, for some people, it does make them function better. It makes them think crisper. It makes them calm down that notch or two. Me, I'm Miss Manic. Man, I live bouncing off the walls, and I kind of like it. You know what I mean? Like my psychiatrist is like, well, you need to take lithium because you're all, look at your speech pattern. You can tell by talking to me now. And she's like, you need lithium. And I'm like, I don't need lithium. I walked in and said, I have the best mental health I've ever had. Cannabis is a mood stabilizer. It is a very good mood stabilizer. So even if you need an antidepressant, it will be the mood stabilizer that makes it work better. And so I take Effexor. So I do take an antidepressant. And, but I just never felt right until I started medicating myself for back pain. And when I got my back pain in order, one of the side effects was I had the best mental health I've had in my whole life. It's just gone. I forgot what it was to feel mentally ill. You know what I mean? I'm like, I have to sit and concentrate to remember those feelings. And she wants me to take lithium. And I told her, okay, You win. Write a prescription. She got all happy, started writing it. And I said, set me an appointment for 30 days from now. And she's like, yes, I'll set the appointment. And I said, okay, now you take the damn lithium for 30 days. And when we get back together in 30 days, we're going to talk about taking lithium. Until you take it, I ain't taking it because I don't need it. And she looked at me like, are you insane? And I'm like, I can find another psychiatrist. We don't have to play this game. And she was like, very well, Miss Hackett. So stand up. Don't be afraid to stand up and say, no, I'm not going to take that. No, I don't like what it's doing to me. So the message is, you know, whatever you're searching for out there, stand up for yourself. You don't have to take the pill. You don't have to drink the Kool-Aid. You don't have to do it. This ain't Jamestown. We don't have to drink the Kool-Aid anymore. And so the thing is, find your solutions. Keep looking for them. And the what you'll find is, you say you got injured, you know, overseas, and you're coming back, and you got a lot of pain. One of the side effects of dealing with your pain will be good mental health. One of the side effects of treating my spine was that I have rheumatoid arthritis. It went into remission with cannabis. I have been in remission for 7 years, and my arthritis has not progressed at all. It was a side effect, not the side effect that killed the liver. It was a side effect that made my, arthritis stay in remission. Cannabis works very well on autoimmune disorders, neurological disorders. Now, there's a lot of germ warfare and, gas nerve agents out there, especially you military guys, that stuff's there and it's real. It's not a conspiracy theory. And cannabis is like nerve balm. It's like a nerve agent. It helps soothe over your nervous system. It makes nerve pain get way better. And so, my legs hurt because of the pinched nerves in my lower back. And the thing is once I got rid of the inflammation. So if you're wanting to help yourself with cannabis, your first goal is sleep. Cannabis is very good at it. Now, I fall into 10% of the people that we treated, cannabis woke them up. THC woke them up. So that was 10% of the 4,000 people we tracked. 10% of them, THC woke them up like coffee. I'm one of them people. I'm like jazzed out of my gourd. It's like speed for me. And, it's great when I got a lot to get done, but not when I want to go to bed. But for me, CBD makes me sleep. So I like a 1-to-1 THC and CBD. That makes me sleep like a baby. And so your first goal is always going to be sleep. You cannot physically heal or mentally heal unless you're sleeping. You want a minimum of 6 hours of sleep.
Right.
That is going to be a healing time. That's deep tissue healing. That's mental health healing time. If you can get 6 solid hours, you're winning. Okay?
What they give, and the problem with that we have, because the VA is our resource for health, is we go in there and they're like, okay, you're not sleeping, you're agitated, your mood's unstable, maybe you feel some separation anxiety because now you don't have this giant support network anymore because you've transitioned to civilian life, and so we get 5, 6, 7 different drugs, or they give us a sleep aid like Ambien, or, sometimes they use Xanax because it'll help you sleep and it'll relieve your anxiety, but it's not good quality sleep. It doesn't promote a healthy balance in your body. And then you have repercussions in the morning because you have this narcotic sleep, this intoxicated sleep, like as if you were drunk. So they're taking the bottle out of your hands and giving it to you in a pill. It's like I might as well drink myself to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, please. Yeah. And like the opiates and the Xanax and all that. You might as well, you're no different. Just because it comes in a pearly white pill, ain't no different than putting a rig in your arm. At the end result is the same as a heroin addict sticking a rig in his arm. You know what I mean? They're leading you down that path. And that's, they don't know any better, to be honest. They don't know any better.
Seems like you're tranquil and you're not a problem at that point.
Yeah, they want you docile. And, if you're sitting there nodding and drooling, you're controlled, you're contained. You almost wonder if that's what they want. Let's just contain them, Let's just keep them drooling. That's the lithium trick. And and eating cannabis is more powerful. It will buy you more sleep. Smoking will calm us, So what you want to do is you want to do a little bit of smoking to calm yourself, but you need to eat it, because smoking's going to buy you 2 hours, maybe 3 if you're lucky. The edible is going to buy you the 4, 5, 6, maybe even 8 hours of sleep, which, holy cow, wouldn't that be great? And so eat it. You've got to eat it, okay? And the thing is also, replay of events, the obsessive replay of event. You lay down, you're trying to doze off, and it turns on. And that obsessive replay over and over again. You're like, somebody shoot me, man. I had enough. I just had enough. And you can't stop. I'm like, no, think of forests. Think of the trees swaying in the wind. No, terrible event, over and over and over. No, think of the trees and pleasant, terrible event, over and over. And you can't stop. So cannabis, eating it helps you not go through that replay of events. You just drop off. You drop off faster. So for a lot of people, they want to eat it early enough so that, if you're like starting to fade like that, great. Now you can go in, you can lay down and avoid that replay of event. Because if you avoid sleep, if you avoid that replay, you're going to put yourself in a psychotic episode. And it's inevitable. You can't stop it. And, the thing about it is that you got to start there. You have to. I could give you no better gift, and that's the beauty of cannabis, is that it is the best sleep aid. Now, when you first start it, for a couple of days, you're going to have a little bit of what I call it dope over. So you're going to wake up, feel a little drowsy, a little stoned, a little what? I could just go back to sleep, and you got stuff to do. So a couple cups of coffee, shake it off. On the 4th day, and we tracked 1,800 naive users, people who'd never used cannabis before.
How many?
1,800. And we said, we're going to understand, one, how long till you feel the benefit if you never used it before? And then how long till that dope over went away? All of them. The 4th day, it goes away. And that was in everyone. We were like, holy cow, that's like a clock. It's almost unreal. And so when we tracked them, then that's where we learned about the 14 days of tolerance building. So now you could feel anxious. You could feel a little anxiety. A lot of people get paranoid, a little flipped out on it. What causes paranoia in cannabis is too much THC with no CBD influence. So if you're getting paranoid on it, it's not because that doesn't mean cannabis is bad for you. That just means you got the wrong kind. Okay? And so this is going to allow you to learn how to help yourself. And so, if it has more CBD, now the stoners bred it out. So the only people growing marijuana, since 1933 when they made it illegal were stoners. And they like the high. They love that high. So they bred that CBD out. So most of what you're going to find out there is going to be very high THC. But don't give up because you get paranoid on it, all right? You can get yourself used to those levels of THC by using small amounts. Microdosing yourself. Small amounts more often is more powerful than a big jolt at one time. So people are like, oh, I'll take 150 milligrams to go to bed. But they didn't benefit as well as if they did 20, 20, 20 throughout the day. They benefited better. So if that's something that, works, these are little tricks of how to make cannabis work better. Now, a 1-to-1 CBD, if you can find those, and they're getting quite popular across the nation now. And so those are great for smoking. They're great for calming yourself. High levels of CBD, we use 20-to-1. So we have 20% CBD to 1% THC. You cannot eliminate that THC. You get a 40%, you're not going to do as well. You have to have some THC. So with those, that's what we treated kids with seizure medicines. But we're finding that people with post-traumatic stress syndrome, people with severe anxiety disorders, that this is allowing them to come down a couple notch and be just chill. Not different. It does, antidepressants change your sex drive, change your moods, change your desire for pleasure, your desire for happiness even. You know what I mean? Where cannabis doesn't change you. It allows you to be yourself and just calm down a notch or two. So through the day, if you can pound that CBD, It's going to help you for that evening time when you want to pop onto the THC and start calming yourself, get ready for that drop off to go to sleep fast.
So we were talking earlier about fitness, how imperative that is for a veteran, like recovery after transitions. Can you still work out the same as you would without CBD while on CBD?
Yeah. And, you know, there's certain strains that will actually make you feel jazzed up enough that you really want to hit it hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, we just briefly touched on it, but adrenaline withdrawal is going to cause depression. It's as hard to come off of living on adrenaline as it is to come off of street drugs. You know, methamphetamine and cocaine and those jazzy street drugs. Coming off adrenaline is just as hard. And so part of what's wrong with people is that they don't know why they're wrong. But you can't just go cold turkey on adrenaline. So working out builds endorphins. It builds up that adrenaline. It keeps you going. Extreme sports, extreme mountain biking, rock climbing, those extreme things will help you get a little bit in so you can come off easier off of it. So use the cannabis in a way to make yourself more productive. Now, you could even take pot and turn yourself into a couch-locked video game person or couch-locked TV person. Everything can be destructive. Food, you can overeat food, tell you it's destructive. Everything can be negative. So what you've got to do is use it in a manner that is positive to your overall well-being. And that's easy to do because, especially when somebody like me is telling you that there's all kinds of differences, there's all kinds of ways to achieve that.
You just need better access to that. Like as veterans, like this stuff is not readily available to the people who need it the most.
Right.
Didn't they recently change the language in some bill to where VA can't seek medical treatment through cannabis?
No, the VA can now get cannabis and still get your benefits. That just passed. So the VA soldiers. The problem is if you're not in Colorado, you don't have access to the good medicine. It's why it's so important that, you know, I keep fighting the battle to legalize cannabis. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm in D.C. lobbying. We teach doctors. We teach the senior population. You know, they're the ones that we have to get to open their minds up because they're the big voters. They're the guys that got the clout. You know, the seniors are the ones that are showing up to the polls and doing the voting. Right now, we have 10 states that have it on the ballot for 2016 November. Okay? So get out, vote. You know what I mean? And talk to people about it because if I can't change it nationally, we can't give everybody the help. And even here in Colorado, the Department of Health does not let post-traumatic stress syndrome as a qualifying condition to use cannabis and buy it medically. You can buy it on rec, but you can't buy it medically, even here in Colorado. So now, weird. I wrote the paper. There's a class action suit. I wrote the paper that described how it treats post-traumatic stress for the lawsuit. And so there's a class action suit here in Colorado to allow it. But unless a soldier has been blown to pieces and sewn back together, I can't help him. Now, if he's got injuries, he'll qualify for the medical card. And I'm like, that's bull. You know, a lot of injuries can't be seen. And, you know, I can only help the guys that have been blown to pieces, you know, been shot. And that's the only guys I can help. And
that's so just so important that we had you on tonight because they want to take, you know, my experience as a ranger and a sniper is different than Doc's experience as a ranger and a medic. It's different than a wheel mechanic that got blown up in the motor pool by a rocket or, you know, a female service member who got blown up in the chow hall who was non-combat arms. You know, our experience is completely different, but when I come back and I start going through my list of problems, they just put the same 4 letters on everybody. It's PTSD, and this is what you've got, and here's 5 different drugs to treat this one thing. And those drugs are dangerous. They're dangerous drugs that have side effects. And it seems to me, I mean, we've talked a little bit about how you've treated some veterans, and I don't think I've ever heard a more compelling reason to try to get cannabis into the VA or at least get access for veterans to try it. You know, if it does nothing more than gives guys an alternative to drinking, then I think that's a positive change. You know what I mean?
That's a progressive drug too. You know, half of these prescription drugs are progressive drugs. Cannabis is not a progressive drug. And, you know, of course you hear that. But what we saw in all those 4,000 people that we treated, so we hit a dose, we pause. And you want to pause 3 days before you up your dose. There is a weird 3-day delay in cannabis benefit, okay? Then we bump them again, and we pause. We bump them again, we pause. We bump them again, we pause. And then what became that first plateau, I'm there. My pain's in control. My mental health is doing good. That was not the maintenance dose. Instead, and it was weird, everyone was different depending on the duration, the type of disorder, their age. Everybody was different. But somewhere between 6 months and a year, all of them dropped their dose. And the maintenance dose was different than that first plateau dose that they needed. And in a progressive drug, that would not have happened. After 6 months to a year, they would have bumped their dose.
Yeah, now, it's perpetual.
Right. When I first started medicating myself, my plateau was 100 milligrams. After about 6 months, I think I was a year later, I dropped down. I do 40 milligrams. 7 years, 40 milligrams is still my dose 7 years later. Yeah. If I was still on opiates, I would already be trying to hit the streets to get more in my... Because after a while, then, it's all fun and dandy now. But in 10 years from now, your doctor's going to treat you like a drug-seeking junkie. I'm like, how dare you disrespect me when you strung me out? And, they start disrespecting me. They start treating you like you're less. Because I followed your path, because I did what you told me, and now you treat me like a drug-seeking junkie? I ain't letting that happen. I'm not going to let that happen to people anymore.
It's even worse. You get out of the service, you go to the VA, and you're already treated like a junkie. I went to the VA, and all I wanted was tramadol. All I wanted was a muscle relaxer, non-opioid, because they scare the shit out of me. And they're like, well, sure, you can have tramadol. Here's the cup. I'm like, what's this for? They're like, we're going to screen you for drug abuse. I don't drink, but once or twice a month, and I'll have a few sips of some whiskey or a couple beers, and that's it. And that's it. That's what I do. And I passed every single urinalysis for 9 years in the Army. I was a staff sergeant. I've got, I proved myself for 9 years. Like, I did all the opposite things that a drug addict would do. And as soon as it's their turn to do something for me, I've got to piss in the cup. I've got to prove that I'm not a druggie and a drug addict. And I'm asking for tramadol. Just a muscle relaxer that they would give me 90 a month when I was in the Army. I had a drawer full of them. So it was like 6 months before I went to the VA. I was like, fuck, I get finally out of these suckers. And I'm like, so you give me 90 a month for 5 years, which I didn't take all of them, obviously, or I'd be dead. But I get out, and now I'm a drug addict, just like that. Like, now I'm treated like I haven't earned a little bit of honor and respect. And that, to me, that's part of the process. It's the dignity that you give people. It's the answer that you give people. It's not just, here's these 4 letters that say you have PTSD, or here's this piss in this cup and go to substance abuse classes because you drink more than 5 beers in a night. And that's bullshit. And then they give you drugs that cause substance abuse problems. So it's like this cycle. And I kind of see cannabis as a way to drive a wedge into that cycle and stop that wheel from turning. Let's address these issues. Maybe this guy that you think has PTSD because he's risk-seeking and because, whatever, maybe he just needs a little bit of cannabis because he needs to sleep. And if he got more than 3 hours of sleep a night, once I started sleeping 6, I'm now up to 8, 9 hours a night. I've gained 15 pounds of muscle. I work out every chance I get. I feel good when I go and do work. I'm not grinding through my day, on that ragged edge like I was in Ranger School, half starved and exhausted. And that became your normal life, just like it was for you and just like it is for Doc and all of our other brothers and sisters that serve, So exactly. This is really, really important.
And it's part of your mental health and your demise to be treated with disrespect. Exactly. I walked that mile. I stood on that wall. It wasn't on my watch. You know what I'm saying? And now all of a sudden, what? I'm a subhuman? Oh, that ain't right. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is that God gave us a gift. There's no coincidence that this plant has 111 cannabinoids and we're full of cannabinoid receptors. That's not a coincidence. I'm sorry. I refuse to believe that. There was a gift, and it was a gift for man to live and to help himself and to survive, because we're made to survive. And so the gift is there. And we're just touching on what it's capable of doing. But one of the things we have to do is we have to let go of that it's bad and that it's the devil. You know what I mean? And that's hard when everyone's looking down on you. Pee in the cup, pee in the cup. You know what I mean? And, with my injuries, I have never been on disability. I could be on disability. I'm blind. I only see out of one eye now, barely. And I have spinal injuries that I can't stand for more than 10 minutes or my legs go numb. If I sit in a certain kind of chair, the back of my legs go numb. The front goes numb if I stand. But, I can't go out and get a job unless I take opiates. And because I can't test positive to THC and get a job. So, but I got hurt when I was 26. I'm 54 years old now. And I have never been on disability. I have always made my way in this world. You know what I mean? And now I'm 54 and I'm looking at like, wow, do I have to get on disability because I can't get a job now because I test positive to THC? It makes it where I could go to work. It makes it where I can function, just like you said earlier. You know what I mean? And that's got to change. But until we federally change it, workman's comp rules the roost in this game. So even if here in Colorado, there are a lot of employers that don't care what you do on your own time. If they don't catch you smoking on the job, they don't care. They just don't. You perform your job at the right level, they don't care. But workman's comp won't let them say it's okay because they rule the roost because it's a federal program. And so workman's comp rules the roost here. And they dictate what you get to do for your pain management. You know what I mean? And like, when I was opiates, trust me, I was not on my game. You know what I mean? But that was okay with them. And so, and I was hurt at work. Just like these soldiers are hurt doing their job. And then they just, sorry, either you sit on disability and act like a slug or this, and that takes from your pride. Pride matters. You know what I mean? Dignity matters. It's how we're going to get well. It's how we're going to heal. Is that we're going to hold on to what made us who we were. You know what I mean? And made you able, like I had said to you guys earlier, you men have pushed a human body beyond what a human body can do. You have pushed a human mind beyond what a human mind is capable of. You have taken it to the edge and just stood there and looked over it and looked over it. You know what I mean? And then you came back. You know what I mean? You walked back. That is an edge. That is powerful. But if I take away your dignity, how can you use that power? If I pull your dignity from you, if I strip you of who you are as a human being, if I dope you up till you're not the man that walked into that military, the man that joined the army, that joined the services. And so, it's a conundrum, we're stuck in this. And, and there are so many soldiers coming back. And, I ran into a kid. I was renewing my own medical license and he was in there. And I could tell by his structuring of his body and the way he was. I knew he was a soldier. I could tell that. I said, he's military, And I said, but something ain't right. I could tell by the way he was moving his body, the way he was structuring himself, that something was wrong with him. And I walked over and I said, you're new to cannabis? And he said, yes, ma'am. And I said, looks like you're having a time. And I said, this is my business card. And I said, if you need someone to talk or somebody to show you how to use cannabis right, come find me, son. I said, I'll be there for you. And he finished his doctor appointment after mine. I went back to my shop, and 20 minutes later, this kid walks into the shop. And he handed him the card and said, she said to come see him. And they said, there's this guy out here. And I looked around the corner and I said, welcome, my friend. Welcome here. And I brought him in the back. And he was sitting there and the staff was going back and forth. And he was jerking. And every time there was a sound behind him, he was on his toes. He was on the edge, and I could see it. And I said, he can't hear me. He can't hear me because there's distractions, and he's trained to watch his back, and his back isn't protected right now. And I said, he can't hear a word I'm saying because he's protecting himself, and he's shut down right now. And I said, why don't we take a walk? So I walked him through the marijuana grow. It was attached to our thing. So him and I are walking through thousands of marijuana plants in there, and fans and all this stuff. And I said, it's pretty therapeutical in here, isn't it? I said, you know, these plants, they don't need nothing more from you than what you can give them. Little love, little water, little nutrient. I said, you're in a safe place now. And now it's time for you and I to talk. It's time for you to hear me. And he could calm down, and he could hear me. And I said, I know what you're going through. And I understand. I said, you're not sleeping, are you? And he said, no. And he explained to me that he'd just been released from a hold. He just trashed the VA. They left him sitting there. He told him, I need help now. They left him sitting and sitting and sitting. After 4 hours, he starts throwing computers and desks and people. And the MPs had to wrestle him to the ground. They put him in a straitjacket and locked this kid up. And, you know, then they pumped him full of all kinds of drugs and kept him, you know, just doped out of his mind the whole time he was in there. He got out of the VA, and he was driving, and he went to this marijuana doctor. And that's where him and I engaged. And I handed him my card. And I said, okay, now I know how extreme it is for you. And he says, no, the SWAT team comes to my house every couple weeks, and they grab me out of the house because I'm coming undone and my wife's scared. And the baby's crying. And they're pulling me out of my house. And the police won't even come. They're so scared of me that the SWAT team pulls me out of my house. And I said, okay, I see where you're at. And I said, first thing we got to do is we got to get you sleeping, son. And I said, and after 3 nights of sleeping, me and you are going to meet again. We're going to talk because what I'm saying is going to sink in more when you sleep. And I said, so we're going to work on that right now. Well, this kid, you know, he followed the program. He did his work, man. And in 90 days, and I asked him because about maybe 30 days into his program working with me, I said, we're going before the Senate tomorrow. And if you were to come, it would be so powerful for you to come, son. You would give me the clout I need. I said, an angry mom with a 14-year-old she can't control has more clout than me in the room. And I've helped, at that point, it was like, you know, 3,000 people live a better life. And this lady has more clout than me in the room. And I said, you could help me, son. And he said, no, ma'am. I can't go in there, ma'am. I can't be around those people. I'm sorry, ma'am. I can't. I just can't. I would like to help, but I just can't. I can't be around them people. I said, we'll walk you in. We'll be right next to you. I can't do it. I said, I understand. Don't worry. Ain't a thing. I will fight for you. I will go down and I will fight for you. And I did. And 90 days later, he hopped on a plane and he flew to California to talk to other vets, a room full of vets, to tell him that he'd found a solution and that he was getting right and that he was fitting in and he was back with his wife and he was loving his little newborn baby and he felt safe around her. He was so scared to even be alone with his own child because of his mental health. This kid, they threw a grenade in the Humvee and it blew up in his lap. He has titanium legs. His bones are titanium. He has skin on the outside. You can touch him and feel shrapnel all over his body that they can't get out of his body. And he lives in so much pain. And I'll be damned if when he came back, they had a military thing down at the Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. And all these soldiers, you know, they had their packs, you know, weighted down and they had to run this course, right? And he entered it with his bad legs and everything, and with it sewn back together. His face, half of his skull and his jaw is titanium. So he's had a traumatic brain injury. I mean, part of his skull is gone. It's titanium. And they sewed this kid back together, and he couldn't fit with us anymore. And I'll be damned, he was running that. He slipped on the gravel, slid down the side of the mountain, laid down there for 25 minutes, didn't know if he could get his body back up the hill. He didn't know if he could make it. And he grabbed his gut and he climbed to the top and he was dragging a leg when he crossed the finish line, still wearing the damn pack because he knew what it was. He knew what it was to take his body back to where he was. And he had the mental capacity to do it again. And what it did for him to finish that race was priceless in this young man's life. To be able to finish that race with the other fit soldiers, the young men that were still in good shape. And he finished it. And, you look at that and you think, oh, damn. If I don't get another thing right, if I could show these soldiers how to get back, if I could help make it right, it would be okay. And to me, when we struggled opening marijuana business, it looks like all its marijuana is gold. No, it's pretty hard, and it doesn't all shine. But we hit it big. I mean, we were so broke we couldn't even eat. I was living in the grow. I was sleeping on a blow-up mattress. Kind of living like you are now, man. It was like the biggest camping trip I'd ever been on. And I was in a warehouse full of marijuana, sleeping with the plant. Yeah. And every minute that I could stay awake, I was studying cannabis and studying disease so I could do more good, more helping. And then when we hit it big, it January 1st, 2014, we hit it big. We did $5.5 million that year in gross revenue. And I looked at my sister and I said, who will we give back to? We have been fortunate. Who will we give back to? And we said veterans and children. And we supplied veterans and children with free medicine until some scoundrel stole the company from us and we couldn't do it anymore. But we said, who will we give back to? And the reason I chose the veterans is when I was a little girl, the men from World War II, my grandfather and all of them, they would sit around talking and drinking, and talking. And my grandfather was the youngest of 5 brothers. All of them went overseas to fight in World War II. 2 of his brothers were MIA. They hadn't heard from them in years, right? They were in Japanese prisoner of war camps. And at the end of the war, my grandfather went down in there and to get them to take the soldiers out of the concentration camps. And he said he was going in, and these men were only 80 pounds because they didn't feed them, and they tortured them, and they beat them, and they ate bugs to even stay at 80 pounds. They were eating bugs and stuff. And he was going down the hall and carrying men out. And this guy reached out and grabbed his leg. And he said, what? And he goes, is your name Sherman? And my grandfather said, yes. And he said, this man laying here keeps calling out Sherman when you walk by. And he looked and it was his brother. And he didn't even recognize his own brother because he was 80 pounds. And he kneeled down and he picked up his brother and he carried his own brother out of that concentration camp. And his brother Bob never got right. He slept with a gun under the pillow and drank himself to death. And I remember the old men sitting around. I was just a little girl, but I remember them sitting around talking about how he could never get right and what a shame it was. And then I watched the soldiers come back from Vietnam. And my mom and dad had this good friend, and he couldn't stay in town. He couldn't be around people. He would just go up in the hills and live off the land. He'd go out and he won't come back for a year. And then he'd come back, and after a month, he had to head back to the hills again, and he just lived off the land. Yeah. And he survived all naturally up there because he couldn't be back in society. And it really impacted my life as growing up, learning what happens to a soldier and how bad it is when they get back. And so I always had a keen understanding of what you guys were going to go through coming back. I knew it from a young girl of what was going to happen, and I thought, wow, look at how many kids are gone. It's just like World War II again. That many soldiers are coming back now. It's the same as it was then. And that everybody was going to need help getting back and getting right. And so that's why my sister and I, we just fought so hard to find these solutions so that we could show people how to get back. And nothing matters more to us.
And that's so important. That's why I respect what you're doing so much. Me and Chance have talked about this a lot, and James too. It's like, that's what we need, because like Chance scooped me up. I was in Billings, Montana, trying to visit my family. I was basically just hell-bent on a road trip. completely lost. I knew I had done my last deployment and I was going to have to transition out of the military. I was going to lose my support network and I was just broken, you know? And I met Chance in a bar for a beer and we sat and I think I drank half the beer and we talked for like 3 hours, you know, and he put everything he had into, you know, encouraging me and get me back on my feet, you know, making sure that I was going to contact him from the road and stuff. And we've been in close contact ever since. And that saved me, you know, and Chance went through some hard times and I'm like, you know, I'm looking at this guy, this badass Ranger medic, you know, and that's what veterans are, man. That they're the ones that operate at a high capacity. We've been trained to deal with austerity. You know, it doesn't matter how bad the conditions are. These are the people that are going to be the centers in our community. You know, you don't go and lead a battalion or run a whole motor pool or organize a field hospital or nurse 50 soldiers back to health and get them home from overseas if you're not a high output individual. The problem is, though, the VA's giving these guys bad drugs, you know, or they're getting lost in a bottle of pills or in the bottom of a whiskey bottle, you know, and it's like a Ferrari sitting on blocks in the middle of a hayfield just rusting out, you know, and all it takes is we got to get some wheels on there, get some fresh oil, and get that thing back on the road because our country needs that resource. We absolutely need our veterans because they've proven that they can do it, for one. For two, they're willing to do the dirty work and the hard work. They know how to work as a team. We know how to be a subordinate. I don't have to be the leader. You know what I'm saying? Like, put me on a team, and I'll help that team win. You know, that's what we need. We need more people like you that are willing to help us get back there. And I think there's a disconnect between what you're doing and what we want and what the VA is doing. And we're harping on the VA. They do a lot of good work, but they got to get better because we're losing too many guys and girls. You know what I mean? Like, it's too many. We're not addressing the actual problem, and we cannot afford to lose that resource. As a nation, we can't afford to.
The military is geared to train you and prepare you to go there. And the VA was supposed to bring you back, but I think that we as a society need to bring you back and not leave it up to a government entity. They can't do these kind of things. It's impossible. It's impossible to expect them to do it, to be honest. Now, I ain't against the VA, but I realize that they're not the mechanism, that it's society, that it's all of us. We're to welcome you home. We need to show you guys how to get back, you know, how to be around us and how to be back. And the truth is, society has lost its ethics and its morals. You know, I look at what's happening right now, and you look at, you know, some of the politics, and we know they're a crook, and they're still running for president. I mean, what? You know, and I never thought that would happen in my lifetime, where it was proven. It was proven. The FBI said it. You know what I mean? And okay, but you're still going to run for president, and we think that's cool? I don't know what day that went wrong, but it did. And then you look at all this violence in the streets and all this craziness with police officers. And I look around and I think we've lost our moral compass. We've lost integrity and we've lost that. But you guys have been trained. See, parents stop training people to use integrity, to use pride, to engage a situation with integrity, even when it's a no-win situation. You guys are trained for that. You were trained how to engage when there was no right answer. We don't teach our kids that. These millennials, they don't know anything but la-di-da. And they can't lead us. They can't control us. They can't be the ones that we talk about. And, you know, no disrespect to anyone, but the truth is, you guys have the edge. You have the moral compass. You have the ability. You have the drive. You have overcome things that human beings can't overcome. You've done it. We have to show you how to get back, because I think that's all it's going to save us, is a different moral compass, a different way of society looking at each other. And you know what? Like, you know, there was a day when if people wouldn't tolerate rude behavior, you just get shot for being rude. You know, whew, yeah, that was rude. Bam, you know. Now, what? Rude is okay, you know. I can't tolerate rude behavior. Yeah, you know, I don't care if you sweep a floor for a living. If you're the best damn floor sweeper in this world, I look at you with the uber respect. As much as a billionaire, I see you the same in my eyes. But if you can't pull your load, if you can't make your way, go on, get out of my way, man. You're a stumbling block. And so, it's part of why we're so driven and why we have to politically fight so hard for these changes. Yeah. We have to stand up and say, no more of this. You know what I mean? And, I really think that, young men that go to the military, it helps them learn that I have to be disciplined. I have to do this. I can't just freak out and do what I want. You know what I mean? We stopped teaching young men how to be disciplined a long time ago. You know what I mean? And you guys have it. We need you back in society. We need you to be the boss, to start your own companies, to run these things. And it can be done. Where there's a will, there's a way, man. We can survive this. America's been through worse. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we have overcome all kinds of things in this life. And right now, this is a dilemma that we have to fix. Because, I met with this guy, and he's very high in the military. And him and I talked about how I talk to soldiers and what I do. And he was like, oh, you're right on. That's exactly what they need to do, And all you guys start sitting up a little straighter. And I'm like, oh, I love that. And so anyway, and he was like, you were exactly right. And he said the problem is that more soldiers that didn't even see stress combat are killing themselves.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That it's unprecedented. That soldiers are taking their life that didn't have the traumatic events. And they can't understand why they're taking their own lives, because they weren't in the traumatic events. They didn't see hard combat, and they're still taking their own lives. What is that phenomenon? You know what I mean? And we have to understand it and address it. 35 soldiers a day take their own lives? 35 a day? Oh my God.
I think it's 22, but it's still.
I was reading something the other day, and it said an estimated 35 a day.
Or more on the
weekend,
with
you, Paul. I watched a movie that was talking about the NFL players and their traumatic brain injuries and how their symptoms weren't surfacing until they were in their 50s. So I look at, the veterans with TBIs and post-traumatic stress that did go to combat and are wired a little bit differently than most civilians. Like, we come out of the military, we're still fit, we're still in great shape. It's the reason why, like, when I was struggling, I could drink a bottle of bourbon every day and still function like a normal being, because I'd get up in the morning, go run, drink some more, go to work out, drink some more. I was functioning because I'd work in the military as not really a doctor, just slightly less. Not really a collegiate athlete, just slightly less. So in all these disciplines, I'm like nearly the best of the best. And then I come out, I'm still functional as a mess.
Exactly.
But the truth is, you guys aren't broken. You're perfect. You followed the path. This is a pattern. That's not one broken person. This is a pattern. This is the path that is inevitable for you guys unless we change it. And so you guys aren't broken. There's nothing wrong with you guys. You're perfect. You're actually above perfect.
It's a normal reaction to what we've been through. Most of the stuff we go through on the other side of our service is normal. It's predictable. It happens in a similar manner between everybody. You might be able to break it down a little bit finer, but we should expect this. And that's what I like about your philosophy versus the VA, where the VA is you're broken, you need to readjust to society, instead of let's find a way to accommodate you. Now that you've done this, now that you've served, come back, we'll take you as you are. You don't have to morph back into this guy you were. I mean, hell, I was 20 when I joined the Army. I mean, I'm 32 now. Like, I can't go back to that guy. I don't even know who that guy was. I don't know how that guy would be at 32.
Right.
Because experience isn't the same. And I can't get back. I mean, I've had problems getting with the VA. I go talk to a shrink. He's like, you're intimidating and too loud. And I'm not talking any louder than I've been talking on this podcast. And I'm like, I'm speaking to you directly. This is how I've been successful for 10 years. Discretion is part of my job, especially when it comes to the application of violence or harm or force, and I was responsible for teenagers. I took teenagers into a war zone. I know how to handle things. I'm good. You need to, I can only change so much. I mean, there needs to be some accommodation, but.
Right. And
that's the rub.
It's inevitable. It's happening to everyone who's coming back. When I looked at suffering people, and this kind of might help put it in perspective, is I would see them, and I would see that they felt broken, that
Right.
they felt a shell of themselves. And I would
Yeah.
look at them and I'd smile at them and I said, I know how bad it is. I know what it is. And I said, I know. I said, first you gave up the fun stuff. You know, you gave up going to the football game and that party and that to do. You gave that up. That wasn't too bad. Then you started giving up the important things. That graduation party I should have been at. That funeral I should have been at. You know, I should have been there. I've known that family forever, just out of respect. I should have been there. You know what I mean? That's integrity. That matters. But you couldn't go. You're just suffering too much. You know? And I said, then you start giving up what defined you as a human being. The way you dress yourself, you do your hair, you cook a meal, you live. I mean, everything about you, you start giving it up. And then you feel like a burden because now you can't even function on your own anymore. And then you look around and now personal accomplishments, you know, just cleaning the house, just baking a cake, just building a shack. Just building something, like your camp you're building. You got some pride again. You built something. I built a camp, you know, and I'm feeling good about what I did. That is part of you as a human being. And when we don't even achieve small tasks anymore, we lose our core self, that inner human being we once were. And we are a shell of the human we once were. And we feel like we're that shell. And then we look around and we don't know how to stop it and we don't know how to fix it. And I see a lot of soldiers feeling like a shell of the human being they once were. And I look at these people and I smile at them and I say, and I know you can feel like a burden. And I say, and you are. And that's okay. Because that's why we have compassion for each other and family and friends that care for us. And I said, you're not broken. You're perfect. You followed the path of a suffering soul. That's it. You're not broken. I said, it's like I was in your house, like I know you. How do I know this answer? I wasn't around you. I don't know you. But the truth is, it is the path that everyone follows. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. You just got to get back up the path. You got to turn around and hike back up that path. This is the walk. This is where we got to go. And like I said, you know, a lot of people feel guilty because they came back. You know, the living remorse, you know what I mean? And it's real. It's real in people. They saw their buddies die. They lived side by side. When another human being's life is in your hand, that is an experience that the average person will never understand. My life was in your hands and your life was in my hands. And we got through it. We're there. We're that motherfucker right now. That's who we are. You know what I'm saying, man? And I am that person. And now some of them didn't come back. A couple of them buddies didn't make it back. You know what I mean? You watched them die and you feel guilty. But that's so you're not done, man. You're alive because you have another thing left in this life. We all have things we have to achieve. We have to achieve them. You guys are alive because you got one more step to take. You got one more lesson to learn. And you got to get right so you can finish walking the mile. You know, you might raise the child that changes the world, that is the one person that has the wisdom to change the world. Maybe you're not the one that changes the world. Maybe you just influence the person that changes the world. But your part is your part, and you got to play it. You have to live that life. You have to turn that person. You know what I mean? I think some of what I do, you know, I always thought when I was young that I would do something that changed the world forever. As I aged and gained wisdom, I realized that maybe my part is an important part, but it's as simple as I turned the one person that needed to be turned because it was their job to do that. Yeah. And maybe that's all I do in this life is turn the right people in the right direction. But I'm living my life and I'm doing my part. And I had to pick myself up so many times. Man, I'm telling you, life will knock you down. You know, it's real and it's gonna put you on your knees and it's gonna have you beg and please.
We know that firsthand.
You know what I mean? You're going to be on your knees. But you know what? You're going to pick yourself up and you're going to get back up again. You know what I mean? That's possible. And so, you know, you're going to get knocked down. And every time you get knocked down, you're going to be twice as more powerful when you get back up. Think about when you were fighting. The lessons you learned that made you even more powerful. You're back here. There are different lessons to be learned that makes you more powerful. And so if I can, if I can design these medicating protocols using cannabis and using cognitive thinking, cannabis is a tool. It is not a solution. It's a tool to get you in a position that you can grow again. That's all it is. And everything around you is another one of those tools to help you pick yourself back up. But I guarantee, even if you have to claw yourself back up, when you get back up there, you will be twice as powerful as you were before you fell down. And it's going to come. It's going to come in relationships. It's going to come in business ventures. It's going to come in, I tried so hard. I gave it all, and it still wasn't enough. Sometimes that's hard to swallow, but it's just part of it. And so if I can get you guys thinking right, if we can get this medicine to enough people, if we can legally get it changed, and they're hearing us, the VA said, well, it's okay if veterans use pot. What? You think that was going to happen in my lifetime? I didn't. So the steps are happening. But you guys have got to hang on. You got to look for those answers. Reach out. And one thing for sure, like right now I'm meeting with investors all the time. I'm trying to find these investors because I really want to have a facility where veterans can come and physically work out, physically rehab, mentally rehab, have meetings where everybody comes together and they meet on Tuesday night. You know what I mean?
Robin,
and we find answers.
I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Because I think we've got enough for episode 1.
Okay.
And I think we'll wrap it up, do like a thank you kind of thing. I want to talk about your facility and what you want to do. Me and Chance, we've talked a little bit about fundraising and stuff like that for some other stuff. We're going to kick around some ideas. So when we do that episode, hopefully that leads into something more for you. I mean, we get weird people calling us all the time that want to help out and want to offer. I mean, some guy offered us $500K to build a horse ranch. That didn't work out because he was a little weird, but
he was a little weird. We could dress him up. Good. Now I can smoke pot.
Oh yeah. Smoke some pot. So let's hold on. We'll let you take a hit, and then we'll do a thank you and fucking.
Yeah. You know what else is? I have a 501c3, so I can take donations to give veterans free medicine. You know what I mean? I'm getting in this shop next week, so I'll be there. And then I would like to also, make myself available for people that, man, they're just struggling. I'll be available for them.
We could do a live podcast next week and promote it early in the week and then do like a question and answer after we record for a little bit.
Oh, really? Oh, that would be cool. Yeah, because you know what? Like I said, I don't need to sleep. You know what I mean? I don't need days off. I need to reach enough people. The only reason I need money is because I can't reach enough people unless I got the damn money. You know what I mean? And they got all these funding things out there now. And I've toyed with the idea of going on doing a fund me thing. But this would be a great way to get funding to do these things and to achieve it because it breaks my heart that I can't be everywhere and I can't do everything. You know
Same
what I
here.
mean?
Same here. What do you think, Chance? Do we need to do a closeout shot?
No, we can probably since we're going to do repeat episodes. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I'll put it in the credits, and then like I said, in the future, if we always want to do just like a recorded piece and then add that into the editing, I can completely do that.
Okay, yeah, let's we talk offline about that. We'll get that set up. I do want to do that.
I think this is going to be enough to get people interested to check in again next week. Stay tuned.
Is huge, Robin.
Oh, please. This is like the real reality show. You know what I mean? It ain't done by Hollywood. This is real reality here. You know what I mean? This is down to your gut reality. And we don't need producers for that. You know what I mean? We just need hearts.
That's the thing. We just want to get the message out. Like, I would feel wrong knowing the way that I was helped by my ranger buddies. And if I didn't pass that knowledge on to the next guy, I'm doing a disservice to my brothers and sisters.
Exactly. And we see the problems in the VA, and it's like, I get treated like shit, and I'm a staff sergeant and a ranger. What are they saying to the PFC that's got problems? You know, the guy that didn't deploy but still has problems. What are they saying to him? You know, how are they treating him? If they're treating disrespect,
some people just aren't as strong mentally either, and you know, they're gonna fall down harder. You know what I mean? And that's the part, and we'll get into that next time, talking about, you know, don't get caught up in, you know, my event wasn't as bad as that guy's. Why can't I deal with it? And I think that if, you know, the next time we'll get into that, don't get hung up in it. Because whatever it is that you couldn't handle, that was your limit. And that's cool. That's okay. It doesn't matter. You know, I mean, I'd look around and be like, well, my whole family should be at the same level as me. They're not. They're never going to be. You know what I'm saying? What upsets my daughter, Brittany, and what upsets me are two different things. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I was watching that 13 Hours and with my mom, and I looked at my mom and I said, isn't it weird that it's some people's job to know which way an enemy's going to come at you and where to be and where to look at and where to put somebody else? And I said, isn't that weird that that's somebody's job? That they know they're going to come this direction and they're going to come at us like that and we're going to get like this and we're going to do that, and that's their job. And I said, me, you know, I think, oh, I'm going to have to set the crane there and pick the steel this way and swing it that way. You know, I don't think, oh, they're going to come at us this direction. You know what I mean? And, you know, so I know that not all the movies and stuff are point on, but it does kind of give us a little bit of an insight and a wake up of what happens. You know what I mean? And I was like, wow, that's just weird. Those dudes are sitting up on the roof going, oh, you know, next time they're going to do this. You know, they're going to go regroup and come back at us like that. You know, and I thought, how odd that that's a skill that you know how to not get killed by somebody else.
Yeah, me and Doc learned that one real well. So what do you do with it? And you done?
Yeah, I know how not to get killed.
About finding those reserves of strength and fortitude. Once you cross through that barrier that you didn't think you were going to cross, that barrier of hardship, and you get to the other side and you realize just how strong you really are.
Big thank you to our sponsor, DirectActionUSA.com, making custom memorial cuffs. Never forget the fallen. And CelticShield.com, the last wallet you'll ever buy. Go check them out today. And until next time, thank you again for tuning into the Choke Point. Be the link and not an endpoint.